Welcome to the Goat's Gravy, the ultimate podcast tailored for young professionals navigating the dynamic world of sales and sales leadership. We are here to serve up a blend of mentorship and advice. In each episode, we dive deep into conversations with accomplished leaders and rising stars in the sales industry. Together, we explore their triumphs, challenges, and invaluable experiences. Our goal? To distill their insights into practical lessons that can seamlessly integrate into your own career journey. So whether you're a seasoned sales expert or just starting out, join us as we ladle out wisdom and inspiration, empowering you to excel in the ever-evolving landscape of sales. Onward we go. All right. Well, I am thrilled to introduce today's guest, an impressive leader and phenomenal person, someone who impacts everyone she is around in a positive way, helping others with their career goals and ambitions. And she has become a great sounding board for myself. And joining us virtually today from the great Buckeye State. That's why I'm wearing my Buckeye hat.
Go Buckeyes. Sorry, roll Tide. My bad.
Oh, yeah, he is a Tide guy.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to welcome Lauren Lichtenauer.
Yes. What's up, Lauren?
Can you pronounce that?
Lichtenauer.
It took me 2 years.
Yep, I got it.
2 years.
I got it.
So anyways, let's talk a little bit about Lauren. She began her career at Cardinal Health. She spent 7 years there with increasing roles and responsibilities. She then moved to Outset Medical and began leading people. And just after 18 months, was promoted from a clinical manager role to director of sales. Currently, Lauren holds a big position.
Mm-hmm.
She's the vice president of clinical sales at Curonics, a neuromodulation company. And Lauren is not only successful in her professional life, but she's also dedicated to making a difference in children's lives nationwide. Similar to what we do with Special Spaces, there's
awesome.
Definitely some parallels. We can talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
She started a charity called Christopher's Promise 12 years ago, helping all kids, regardless of physical limitations, enjoy some childhood memories like their peers do. Really special organization. She'll talk about that. Really proud of you for that. She also recently celebrated her first wedding anniversary with her wife, Rocky.
Yeah.
Rocky's outstanding. She's going to be a lawyer soon. When not working, Lauren loves spending time with her 2 dogs, friends, family. She also loves riding her bike, and she's very competitive. She competes in a 100-mile Pelotonia every year. She loves to cook. So listen up for some practical lessons and great advice from Lauren's own career growth journey. And welcome to Goat's Gravy, Miss Lauren Lichtenauer.
Lauren!
Thanks, Bill. Quite the intro there.
Thank you. How you doing?
I'm good.
Good to see you again.
We're in the presence of a goat, Billy.
We have a goat.
We have a goat
I
on
would
our
say, like a couple years ago, rising star. She's goat status now.
I love it.
Yeah, she is a goat.
I love it. So, Lauren, our listeners younger in career, your journey sounds really unique. And I'd love to maybe dive into the early stages of that. We've got some folks that are in college right now trying to figure out, do I even want to be in sales? Do I want to try another path? Because you're now vice president of sales. That's your title. Is that correct?
Clinical sales. Clinical organization.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So maybe for our audience, you can kind of kick us off with how you got started. And was this your vision when you were kind of thinking graduation time?
Yeah, no, great question. No, it was not my vision. I actually, so let me kind of step back. So when I went to college, I intended to go into research or biology. For some reason, I just liked the sciences. I liked, learning about just how things are applied in nature and healthcare, all the things, right? So I went to school to be a researcher, got into my labs early on, realized that I liked the content, but it wasn't as social enough for me, right? In a lab,
Okay.
you're by yourself, so I've found that there was a social need that I was really interested in filling. So then I added education actually onto my degree. And so I graduated with a education degree, in a biology degree. My senior year, we had to do an internship or a research project, and I kind of chose the internship path at that point. And where that led me was actually I spent 3 months in Casco, Maine, interning at a camp called Camp Sunshine. And it was a camp for kids with life-threatening illnesses. So every week we would host kids and their families from all across the country, really with one goal to kind of assimilate them, like to bring them together with other people or kids like themselves. And so that was a pretty awesome experience. I wrote my senior thesis on that. And so when I left that experience, I actually started selling bikes at a bike store. So I was a decent cyclist. I was never like a racer or anything like that. I just liked being outside. And
She's competitive, I promise.
Yeah. I don't think I'd mess with her.
but I started selling bikes. Actually, that's what I say was my first step into sales.
Awesome.
I got out of school, didn't really know what I was going to do. Education at that point, I didn't love the idea of having a tenure-based compensation. Where, the most you make is based on how many years you've been in the role. I didn't love that. And so I started selling bikes for about a year, worked at different bike stores in the community. And that's kind of where I fell in love with cycling and just understood the kind of the independence that you got out of a bicycle. But then I realized, hey, I can't work at a bike shop forever. I have other goals, right, financially. And so from there, I actually moved into, but I didn't really want to teach. Like, that's not the path that I didn't really what I wanted to do, but I knew that teaching, it was an opportunity. It was an option, but it wasn't what my heart really desired. And so I actually started as a anesthesia tech at Ohio State in their James Cancer Hospital. And I worked there for about 9 months, just as an anesthesia tech. Basically, what I was responsible for was supporting the ORs and all the surgeries that happened every day. And that's when I kind of put it all together. I really liked healthcare.
Yeah.
A lot of biology. So it was a lot of applied kind of understanding and what I had learned in college. And then I started kind of seeing all these different companies that made different technologies and different products that were used in these surgeries. And I was like, okay, this is great. This is very cool. And then I saw all these reps coming in all the time, supporting them. And I was like, all right, that's so, do I want to go? It was just a lot of observation on what actually was happening in a space that I was genuinely interested in.
Yeah.
And so I started asking them questions and just kind of, again, observing. And I really liked working with people. I liked that atmosphere. I liked the environment. And then it just kind of one thing led to another. That's when I learned about Cardinal Health and understood who they were and what products they made, and found some jobs online, applied to some, got some cold call kind of interviews. And then really
I love it
there. So I guess that's kind of how my early step in.
Yeah. Just real quick, Billy.
From that.
I find this really interesting, and I find this really valuable for our potential listeners on a couple points that I just heard. One of which is the whole internship. And Lauren, it sounds like you are, you're really grounded and it was really mature for that age.
Yeah.
As far as saying, okay, I like hanging out with people. I love biology, and you're trying to piece it together. And maybe leveraging internships early on to figure out your exact fit that you love to morph for exactly where you're going. So that sounds like the potential lesson learned there that I'm hearing is leverage the internships and be honest with yourself as far as what's going to make you happy. Is that kind of what you were thinking?
Yeah, I was actually working in the bike shop when this lady walked in, and I would say your internship, again, follow your heart and what you at the core motivates or makes you passionate about something. But this lady came in, she was a customer, and we just started talking, and she mentioned that her and her daughter had just volunteered at this camp. And I don't have any association with pediatric cancer. There's no one in my family that has been impacted by that, fortunately, but it was just something that I was like, I would really like to do that. Maybe that was a combination of my education, biology, whatever. But right after that conversation, I went and applied. and got accepted. So, I mean, I just think you have to kind of be aware of of your gut and your heart and what really, connects you, what really like speaks to you, I guess.
I have a
Yeah.
question for you, Lauren. That awareness, I think, is something that has obviously been an asset to you in your career, but for the young listener that's like, okay, I have no clue how to even build self-awareness. Like, I don't even know what I want. Like what were you, what was your inner dialogue that like kind of drove you towards some of the maybe
That is a
unintentional
very
decisions?
question. I think probably most kids in high school, you're going through high school and you're just trying to fit in and you're trying to kind of figure out who you are, and that's a process in itself, and it's still something we all do today. But I remember at one point, actually, I think it was like my junior or senior year of high school, I had a moment, kind of where I was like, okay, I feel like I'm being too much of a chameleon. I'm like, if I hang out with this group of friends, I'm trying to be like them. And then I hang out with another group of friends, I'm trying to be like them. And then, and if something were to happen to me, people would say, oh, well, Lauren's this person. And then somebody else would be like, well, Lauren's this person. And so I had a kind of my own awakening, where I really tried to figure out who I was and like just be genuine to that and like be okay with it. And so it's a good reminder, but I think everybody has their own journey. I remember doing a lot of hiking and just kind of thinking, just to myself and figuring that out. But I think everybody kind of figures it out in their own way.
That's what I love though about her story up to this point. What she shared is that she learns every step of the way because she's curious, right? That's one thing you do a great job of, Lauren. You always ask really thoughtful questions. You're always trying to understand things, whether it's somebody's perspective, somebody's experience. That genuine curiosity, I think, serves you very well. That's part of it. And that's your own discovery process. Mm-hmm. You have this like heightened awareness of what you like or don't like, and really more in a meaningful way of, hey, what are you really passionate about or excited about? And so I just loved how you kind of explored that early on, as a lot of us, especially early in career, people jump a lot of different jobs or trying to figure it out. And there's value to being, patient and staying in the pocket. We've talked about that, previous shows. And you did that at Cardinal, by the way. We'll get to that. But yeah. I do like how you kind of just explored it in a way where it's like, okay, this feels right, but it's not 100%. I kind of like this arena over here. I'm going to ask some more questions, learning. And then ultimately you kind of coupled it together and figured out that, hey, I want to be in healthcare somehow. And I feel passionate about this, and I'm going to go have an impact. Before we get to the career part with the start, and kind of the medical device arena with Cardinal, working in the bike shop, obviously the internship. Will you just share a little bit about Christopher's Promise? Because I just think for someone that young, I mean, she started this charity over 12 years ago, right? So again, being beyond mature for your time, getting this charity off the ground. I just love to hear that story.
Yeah, no. So I went to I go to the internship, and I was there for 12 weeks. Didn't make $1. It was crazy. I was so broke, and we would like eat hot dog rolling, like the roller hot dogs,
roller dogs,
roller dogs. Yeah, but they're red in Maine. It was weird, but anyway, so I went up there, and I think it was probably my 10th week. It was towards the end. You learn a lot when you put yourself in other people's shoes. And, I met a lot of kids and met a lot of parents. Just learned a lot about all these people that in the stories that they had. But, I don't want to say I didn't connect with them. I did, but there was one kid that I really connected with, and his name was Christopher. And that was towards the end of my time there. And I was his one-on-one counselor for a whole week. And, I don't know, like he was kind of like I call him like my life changer. He gave me a very unique perspective on life and, what really matters. And like this kid, I mean, he has optic glioma. He's got a form of brain cancer, neurofibromatosis, cerebral palsy, had all these things stacked up against him, but he was like the happiest kid on the planet and just so full of joy. And so, met him, just really fell in love with him, fell in love with just kids that have adversities against them, but also just are so resilient and so positive, and just like kids are just so unique. They're not as, they look at life a very different way than we do as adults. And so anyway, I came back from the internship, and that experience of meeting Christopher really changed me. And then started working with another camp called Flying Horse Farms here in Columbus. And ironically, 4 years later, after I met Christopher at Camp Sunshine, 4 years later, he actually is from Cleveland. But 4 years later, we ran into each other again at this Flying Horse Farms camp. And so we found some time to get together. And I went and spent the weekend with him and his family. And I asked his parents, like, hey, how's he doing? How's his prognosis? If there's anything that he needs, like, what is it? And this was after the kids had gone to bed. And he's going to have he's in his 20s now, believe it or not. But they said, you know what, he's doing okay. He's still having surgeries on his head because he had some tumors up there. And but he really wants a bike. He keeps trying to get on his bike and then he falls off of it. So we had to give it away because he keeps just trying to get on it. And I was like, okay, well, I work at a bike shop. Like, let me see what I can do. And so I ended up going home, and then I just kind of started trying to figure out, like, how am I going to get this kid a bike? I don't have $2,000 to give him one myself, but like, how am I going to do this? And, so on my lunch breaks, I would call all of these organizations. So this is, I guess, a non-paid cold calling role where I would just call Shriners, the Variety Club, different Lions clubs, like trying to ask people to give me money, basically. Yeah. And that led me to an organization out of San Diego called Athletes Helping Athletes. And they're like, yeah, this is great. We're happy to help. This is something that they do. And so we basically kind of formed a partnership, and they fund the bikes. They do it all. They don't have a whole lot of people working on their cause. Roadrunner Sports owns a shoe store, or Roadrunner Sports is a shoe company across the United States. And as customers cash out and buy their shoes, they'll round up and donate to Athletes Helping Athletes. And Athletes Helping Athletes is all really ran by the executive assistant to the CEO, and her name's Erin Campbell. And so we connected. We got Christopher a bike, then we got his brother a bike, and we got two of his sisters a bike. And so, they needed, basically it was a win-win situation, right? They needed help getting applications together and the time to do that obviously is unpaid. And I wanted to find kids that wanted bikes. And so we had this great relationship that is still a partnership today. Erin and I connect frequently. And so it was win-win. And, at the end of the day, Christopher got a bike.
That's awesome. That's incredible. That's really cool. Because a lot of the folks that we talk to that are later on in career, Lauren, have this connection to what they're passionate about from a charity standpoint.
Yeah.
My concern is my son's in college. And a lot of these folks, aren't lucky enough to get connected to something outside of maybe, I want to be a super salesperson and a sales leader, and I want to make a ton of money. I want to get all this equity, and I want to buy the, Lamborghini, and I want to buy the lake house.
Yeah.
Man, is it so hard to get there, at least in my opinion, unless you're balanced. And that affects the happiness. So just for our listeners out there, big picture. I love your story about the bike and the connection to your passion outside of sales. And we're really here to talk about sales and leadership, but there's so much to that, right? To complete I don't want to get too philosophical here, but to allow you to be as effective as you can as a leader, right? As far as that balance goes. But any advice for, our listeners out there about jumping the benefits, high level, of jumping into something beyond your passion to make money?
Yeah. Yeah. I like with the charity, I knew that wasn't going to be where that's not what I wanted to do job wise. Like that was a passion project. I caught my, lemonade stand, so to speak. Like that is just for fun.
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
but on the career side, I mean, I think you kind of have to start with what is most important to you. Like, is it like what's motivating you, or what is your end goal?
Hmm.
And then kind of navigate it from there in terms of kind of what fills your bucket or your cup in terms of what you want,
Yeah.
and also making sure that it's a challenge for you. Like constantly kind of pushing your barriers in terms of what you're going to be more capable than you think you're going to be.
Hmm.
So making sure that you're putting yourself in situations where you can constantly kind of push the envelope a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, there's three things I kind of took away from that story, though. Is number one, you're a great networker, right? And there's lessons there that can be transferred just to the world of sales leadership. It's all about networking and reaching out and connecting. And so you did that, right? You were exercising a lot of those transferable skill sets, but doing it for a great cause. So to me, it's sometimes stepping out of what you're trying to do. If you're trying to make money, do sales, going to get a different experience. I think it
Yeah.
gives you, number one, you can still apply the same type of skills, toward that, whatever that initiative is or that passion is. The second part of it is I think it does broaden your network overall, and it gives you more people that potentially can either mentor you, or those could be people down the road that help you, find your next job. I mean, it's just a great way to step out of your arena, get into a new world. It just broadens your overall awareness of different experiences, things that are out there. You've learned so much from just, before we even get to your actual first job,
Yeah.
all these things that you are doing and experiencing just from you being curious, from networking, for having a passion that was important to you, giving back, right? All those things are really important. And I think the third thing to me is also just, if you don't find something else outside of the work world, it's the old analogy of when you're all in on one thing, you get so close to that tree sometimes. And having the ability to step back, do something else, shift your brain power mindset into another project. I think when you come back into your all in job, right, it allows you sometimes to look more at the forest,
Yeah.
and not just
Totally.
front and center at the tree. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
well, let's talk about Cardinal Health, because obviously you
Yeah.
were there almost 7 years.
Yep.
You took on different roles as you went. Maybe just give us the flyover of some of those early experiences. Specifically, would love to hear about when did you start really finding mentors or people that were kind of a compass in the jungle for you?
Yeah. So my first role at Cardinal was actually a cold calling role. I was on the medical services side, and it was freight management. So it was not anything super exciting. It was basically shipping costs for hospitals and healthcare facilities. And what I would say is that it was a step in the door. And so you're not always going to get, this glamorous, amazing title role. Like you've got to get yourself in the door. And I actually remember my last interview with the head of the head of the organization. He was a roll bike customer. So he had shopped at the bike store and knew the owner and all that. So we kind of connected on that separately. You've got to, find a way to connect with the people that you're going to be working with. But my time with Cardinal, the first role I was there, I tried to come in, try to understand what was happening, who was doing things really well, learning from them, asking really good questions, really trying to figure out like who's the who in this pond, and then how do I get close to them, and how do I learn how they were successful. And then, as I got kind of comfortable and started producing and being successful in the role, then I tried to figure out like where are there things that we're doing? Where are the gaps? Like what are we not doing that we should be doing? And I think that when I started kind of thinking beyond what the role was and doing more than they asked, is when I kind of started to set myself apart. And I would say that that was the key to success at like a Cardinal, where your roles can kind of be a little bit more specific and like, hey, this is what I expect of you. This is how many hours you need to work. And so it wasn't too hard to go beyond that and just put a little bit more in and bring.
Is that just something you did though, Lauren, or was there someone giving you that guidance like, hey, take on more, stretch yourself?
No, it was just something I did because I knew I wanted to do better. And I hear this from a lot of people on my team. I want to move up. I want to do more. Well, then just do it.
Right.
Because what I saw and what happened at Cardinal, and actually, Susan is out front here. She owns this little co-working spot, but that's the leaders notice that. And so if you start, Bill, we talk about it all the time, but if you start doing the job you want, then you'll ultimately get there.
Yeah.
It's going to lead to a promotion, and then you just, then you start the job. You really should start doing the work before you get to that point.
Yeah, that's awesome. It just reminds me at the beginning when we were prepping for this show, Lauren, we were chatting about an interview I had today. Mm-hmm. And I just got a follow-up from this gentleman, and it was a text. And to your point, start doing the job before you get it. I say that all the time to people. You want that job? Start doing it. Yeah. And in this gentleman's case, he said, all right, Scott, I'm going to lay out the 4 pillars that I heard. I'm going to put a business plan together, and I'm going to outline the problems that we're going to go solve together. I was like, wow, this guy is over the top. I mean, that no one does that. So for our listeners out there, I think it's a good takeaway. Start doing the job before you get it. And just because you have job A and you have aspirations to do job B or C, ask the question. Because Lauren, I'm listening to you. You mentioned asking questions 4 times so far. We've been chatting not too long. So ask that question of the leadership of, I want to take on this project. I want to solve these problems, and that'll get you the next job. You might be doing double duty a little bit, but that's what it's going to take to get that next role. So I'm not sure if, as a leader, my question to you is, do you give those opportunities proactively to your teammates to help you solve a bigger problem and give them the ability to start doing the job before they get it?
Yeah, I think it's that's definitely, I think as a younger leader, you're not as open to that, right? Because you're still figuring out how to lead. But I, having been supported and mentored and led by great leaders, that kind of ask for, and not delegate, that's not the right word, but basically push it back to the team to kind of solve. I've definitely tried to embrace that as much as I can. With my current teams, I think that's the leadership that I was fortunate to have at Cardinal, where I found those leaders. Not everybody was that leader. But I found the leaders that would be open and listen to my ideas or they would give me opportunities, and give me like true feedback. But, I was the one doing the work, or, I was the one doing the job. Right. So, I think that's what the other thing I would say is find the leaders that really embrace you and kind of pull you in and will listen to your input or ideas.
Yeah. Well, one thing just to add. So I think, and you mentioned feedback, we'll come back to that, but it's, you want to do that next role, but you gotta become a peak performer in the role you're in. That's what we always talk about. Yep. Do your current role really well, stretch yourself, start doing the things that are going to be expected of you in that next position, but find mentors that are in that next role to give you guidance. And that feedback loop is really, really critical. And what I learned early on, and I know, Lauren, we talk about this a lot, but your ability to give and receive feedback is really important. And it's only going to make you better. And if you just open your mind to say it's constructive, but we always say, we joke around, you want the vegetables or dessert, depends if you're a healthy person or not, like dessert. But sometimes you just got to take the vegetables or the not so good things, like where am I falling short? What am I not doing? Where can I work on my craft to sharpen the axe? And so I think that's really important part of this. And I think that's why at the end of the day, for anyone that's out there, even in your current position, what I find nowadays is people tend to, more often than not, stick in their bubble. Like they're either working in their silo or they have 2 or 3 people they went to training with that they're close to, and they have conversations with a lot of the same people. And that's not a bad thing. You have people you can trust, and if they're giving you good feedback and you're learning. But the danger is you're not stretching yourself. So I think just encouraging you to go out and talk to people you don't always talk to, the people that are doing the role you want or in the current role you're in, and they're doing great, right? Reach out to them and find out what are they doing that's maybe different than what you're doing. Share the things that you're struggling with and get feedback, and then you apply that forward. And that's something I've seen Lauren do even as a leader. She's really good about seeking feedback.
And Lauren, I'm sure you'd agree. Quick question for you. Mm-hmm. Billy, I think you made a really good point. You got to simultaneously do the job you're in now. Let's say it's a sales gig, yet seek, in the next role, you're trying to figure out how you can add value. But what I look for as a leader is someone in their sales role to create standards for the rest of the company. It could be a standard that you create and then you tuck it into another geo or another area of the company. So Lauren, is there an example that you can give us or the audience on something that you did so well, it was now a standardized process for maybe another portion of the company? And did that give you accolades, or is that something that you've done in the past?
Yeah, we, so actually at Cardinal, just since we're still there, so I was in the role as we were kind of talking about, and I started to see that there was a gap in our business focus. We were kind of going, top down instead of bottom up simultaneously. And so I kind of put together a hypothetical plan, like, hey, if we were to approach it this way, it might yield better, results or better outcomes, et cetera. And so position it to the leader that I had talked to, and she took it to the head of the organization and said, hey, could we resource this and just try it? Let's just trial this. And it was basically an intensive focus on our customer. And so that led to actually an 18% increase in performance of that customer's freight management program.
Right. I love that. That's a cool story. And you had the metric on the top of your head, which is cool.
It was like, oh my gosh, I hope this works. I'm putting my neck out here. And it did, but we ended up standardizing that process, across the organization. And so that's a team that still exists today. There were 8 people on it, and that's what they would do every day, is to complement kind of how we were approaching it. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but it kind of led to a standardized protocol. Standardization is a big thing for me. Mm-hmm. While I've been in sales for, 10-ish years, I actually started in operations. And so you have to understand that if you find the recipe for success, it's rinse, wash, repeat. And that applies in operations, it applies in sales, but it's like, go find what's working and then repeat it. You don't always have to, create the wheel, but go find what's working and then make.
But what the story you just shared is a great one. And I think the point you're making, right, is you get a lot of feedback as a commercial leader. I love hearing from the field, the things that if we do this different or we do this better, it's going to, the more feedback you get, right? I mean, that's our customers, the field, and they're the closest to the customer. But the opposite of that is if you get with your crew and call it the swamp draggers, all you're doing is complaining about everything. Every company, doesn't matter the size, has its flaws, has its challenges. Some are more rich or ripe for change, for opportunities to make a difference in a positive way. Yeah. But I think that's such an important lesson. Is I always tell people when they're coming into organization new, you're bringing experiences, right, that are transferable into this environment. Don't be the new person. Like, show up, and where you see an opportunity to make something better, have a voice. Make sure you share that voice. And that's something Lauren does a really great job of. Yeah. She's always giving feedback and doesn't let things that don't work frustrate her. Instead, brings a solution forward, and let's look at doing this, and what if we do this? And I think that's really important. And that's how you can empower your teams, right, to go make a difference if they know that they can come back and bring those suggestions. So even for leaders, you got to make sure that you really listen to the team when they're giving you feedback.
Yeah, and I think what I liked about what Lauren said, Billy, is look for the win-win, right? The win for the team is that 18% increased productivity or whatever it was.
18.
The also the win in it for Lauren, as she looks to do more, and a lot of us and a lot of our listeners want to do more and more and more. So look for the win-win, right? What's the win for the bigger team? And the win for you, believe it or not, is you're going to be sitting in that interview, and that leader is going to be looking at you and saying, what did you go tackle? Yeah. And if you've got an 18% increase in XYZ that's beneficial to the greater team, boom, that is the win-win. So seek those. I see a lot of people that are focused on their own win. And those are the people that won't get promoted, right? And so just think about the bigger team. You make sacrifices for the bigger team, you will find yourself with endless opportunities.
And to that point, last comment on this, but do your current job really well, become a peak performer, start doing the role you want to do. And then if you're truly going to get promoted, the third bucket to me is, are you promoted by your peer group? Like, are people going to say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense? Or are they going to scratch their heads? And so often we talk about your ability to influence not just your own environment, but those around you. Are you making those around you better? Are you showing up well for your teammates? And are other leaders also going to want to support you? So keep that in mind. But can you have a positive wake on others? So Lauren, hey, maybe talk about the jump. So you got promoted multiple times at Cardinal, but then you jump into was your first time leading a team at Outset Medical, or did that happen prior to going to Outset?
I started, my first people leadership role was at Cardinal, and I did that for about 3 years. And then I moved to Outset. So, Cardinal was a great organization, a lot of opportunities in a lot of different ways. But, for me personally, there was still kind of a void, and there's a lot of people that work at Cardinal, right? And so you're one in a million, so to speak.
46,000 employees, I think.
Wow.
It's huge, which is great for the networking, but I wanted to be more significant in a role, I guess. And so when I moved to Outset, it was a challenging decision. It was a risk. It was a huge risk. Outset was had an early FDA, and had just been FDA approved. And it was an early commercial product in the renal space. So basically it was a dialysis technology. I sat down with their head of sales, Jamie Lewis, who's a big mentor of mine and knows Bill as well.
She'll be coming on. Yeah.
Yeah. She'll put me a couple episodes further down, because she's the smartest woman I've ever met, and you can quote me on hers.
She's brilliant.
She's amazing. But, she sat down with me, and actually I think she told me I should never give you this job. Like, you don't have the experience, you don't have the qualifications, but I like you and I think you could do it. I want to give you the opportunity. You have the attributes, but you don't know what you're walking into. And I'm like, okay, but I'll figure it out. I promise. Like, I've done that, I'm confident that I'll figure this out. I'll do whatever I have to take. So she gave me a huge, huge opportunity. My first, step into medical device. I had some background, some experience with sales and networking. I had found my way to her through friends. I had some experience in the OR. So, I had enough to kind of get myself there. But she took a risk on me. And that risk really, changed my life, changed my career. The opportunity itself really changed my career. An early FDA product is challenging. Was the hardest job I've ever had. The technology, people didn't want to adopt it. People didn't want to innovate. You had a lot of people that said this would never work. This is never going to happen for you guys. Nephrology is a pretty passive industry, so they don't always, they're not surgeons, right? Where they're seeing new products every day. This is a pretty incumbent, slow moving or type of industry. So, that was my first time, I guess, in a medical device, leading people, really driving change and driving innovation. And I spent about 3 years with them, kind of on that journey of early commercial to 100 million. And that was a wild ride. So started on the clinical side, got really, really strong in that in that role. Learned that product in and out, learned the customers, what mattered to them. Why did they use our product? Why didn't they use our product? Learned from them to really, I guess, hone my messaging to other customers. And then from there, I became like just a really solid salesperson clinically, which gave me credibility earlier in the sales cycle. And so I had all the capital guys come into me and saying, "Hey, I need your help. I need you to come to this meeting. I need you to be here." I'm like, "Okay, here I'm coming." And so I had all these capital guys that had a lot more experience than I did, asking me for help. And so that's kind of what led me into that more of that sales director role, where I led the capital and the clinical teams.
Lauren, what resonated with me when you said that, and a lot of keep in mind, our listeners are oftentimes younger in career, and they're going to be getting the door slammed on them. They're going to get the no's. They're going to get a bunch of doubts in their minds.
Yeah.
And I know I felt it. I still feel it today. I think it's just a function of sales and sales leadership. It's just we're faced with really hard challenges, and that's why we have jobs, and that's why they pay us well.
Yeah.
Anything for our audience as far as you were going through those times, and it was tough sledding. What brings you back to center to allow you to be in a position to solve a specific problem? Like, it's more of a mental question, but how do you stay focused and positive when you're getting darts thrown at you all the time?
Yeah, I think it's being realistic, that it's having realistic expectations. Like, the earlier you are in the adoption curve, the more no's you're going to get. So if you think you're going to, if you look at a great batting average, right? Like, it's under 500, still. So like you're putting the bat on the ball 3 or 4 times out of 10, and that's pretty good. So I think what I had to remember is it's a numbers game. And then when you actually hit, and you made a connection with an executive, you got the meeting set up, that thrill is kind of what kept you going. But if you showed up with the expectations that you're going to hit 100% and you're going to slug it out of the park, you're going to fail. Is kind of how I looked at it. And I like it. It was at different stages of your technology, we were just trying to find 1 or 2. We didn't need all 10. Like, we wanted the right adopters. We wanted the right customer. We didn't want the person that couldn't see the vision. Later on.
Yeah. For our listeners out there, early in career listeners that just decide to chase a technology like that's newer. And in my field in technology, there's plenty of those. So AI is here. There's so many cool AI startups coming out in all the fields, medical included, but certainly technology. But just be careful. If you go into the startup world, what I'm hearing you say, Lauren, is, man, you're going to hear 99 no's out of 100. Can you handle that mentally? Do you know yourself well enough? Or like in the tech industry, the running, I don't want to say joke, but oftentimes, hey, go to a bigger monster tech company like the old HP, like IBM. Probably going to hear a lot more yeses. And maybe that's more your style, right? But you got to know yourself. And Lauren, you strike me as someone that really knows yourself, and you're going to put yourself in a position to succeed. So just know that these cool startups with a ton of equity and these massive OTEs, man, not many folks get through them.
No, and I think you just have to make sure going into any opportunity, right? You got to know what you're getting into. You got to set the right expectations for yourself and make sure you understand what's expected of you.
Right.
And Lauren did a good job of that. Hey, Lauren, just going back to that, whether your first leadership job at Cardinal or early leadership at Outset, what are some early mistakes you made as a leader that maybe you learned from, or if you had some redos, what would those be?
Oh man, that's a great question.
There were none, Billy.
maybe there weren't any.
No, you know what? I think actually it was, I remember when I was leaving Cardinal to go to Outset, I had a reflection and I was like, I'm going to do this differently moving forward. I don't know that it was a fail necessarily, but I'm sure I had many of those. But this is what I remember thinking, like when I was literally walking out the doors of Cardinal on my last day. it was interesting because, I made really strong, deep relationships in my team and those that worked for me. But I probably, looking back, didn't do as good of a job cross-functionally. And so like on my last day, all my teams were like, bye, we're going to miss you. And then like everybody else is just kind of working like, bye. And I just remember being like, that's, I'm disappointed because I should have been a better colleague. I should have made more impact with some of those teams versus earlier on in my career. I kind of got, a little bit territorial. Like, this is my group over here. So-and-so is not doing what they should be doing and they're slow or whatever. And, so I intentionally, when I went to Outset and went to our first sales meeting, which had a lot of different departments there, and even at Curonics, Bill, I'm very intentional on building bridges because those people are.
Yeah, she does a great job of it.
And so I remember going to the sales meeting and I challenged myself. I was like, I want to meet everybody in this room and I'm going to try to remember their names. And that's kind of just been a lesson that I learned earlier on, and that will help you. Again, it's a networking thing, but it'll help you in your leadership role. You can't try to just build your own little army. You've got to work with other departments really, really well.
Yeah.
The other thing she does really well, she models the behavior she expects.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She's not going to ask anyone to do anything she wouldn't do or she doesn't do.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. Hey, maybe just if you can talk a little bit about from your experience, you moved into sales leadership at Outset as well. And just as you think about in general, what are the things you look for if you're hiring a seller? Even now you're hiring, clinical sales support. But what are those key attributes or skill sets that you think are important for anyone to possess in sales?
Yeah. So I've kind of subscribed to really three primary attributes. And I've just found like whichever role it is, they always ring through. And it's not my genius idea. This is a Patrick Lencioni ideal team player. His ideal three attributes is humble, hungry, smart. And so in my conversation,
love that book, by the way.
Do you have humility? Are you hungry? Are you going to figure it out? And then are you intelligent? Can you actually, learn the space that you're going to have to be an expert in? So those are the three kind of attributes that I personally look for in any role that I'm hiring for.
Yeah, I love Bill McDermott, who runs our company. Lauren, is hungry and humble is everything for him.
Yep.
And it's how we hire. It's how we treat our customers. It's how we treat internal customers. The hungry piece is an interesting one for me. Just a quick note to our listeners out there. Hungry for information, right? I think we mentioned early on, Billy, in this conversation about just being inquisitive. And Lauren, you could tell when we first met, you've known Lauren for a while. Her first interaction with me was a question. Mm-hmm. So to our audience, make your first interaction with people a question, right? And there's just something, Billy, you and I have mentioned in the past. Be interested, not interesting. Yep. In sales, you tend to build an ego. You make a fair amount of money and you live and die on deals, right? And man, is it hard not to get cocky, right? But it's the exact opposite that's going to make you successful. And that's the exact opposite of what we're looking for to make hires, right? So for our listeners out there, be interested, make the first, so network. Lauren, you sound like you're a rock star networker. And I guarantee you, your first couple comments to the folks you're meeting are not about how great you are. But that's the trap that I see because it's such an interesting business that we're in sales to be talking about you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
let everybody else talk about you.
Yeah. Yeah. And just ask those questions because, again, back to an interview, this is fresh in my mind that I had today. This gentleman came right at me with such good questions. And by the way, they were prepared.
Yeah.
He was dialed in. The three questions, boom, boom, boom. And in an interview, just for our listeners out there, That's a great way to start. Or a relationship in general. When you meet someone, who is more annoyed with people when you first meet with them and all they can do is talk about themselves? Super annoying. It's just ridiculously annoying. And people don't even realize they're doing it. And sometimes in interviews, they're actually doing it. I said, wow, this person's not going to make it in sales. So, Lauren, that's a nice friendly reminder of, networking. And, I didn't even know that was a book, Humble, Hungry, and Smart. So I haven't read it.
Yeah, I got it. I'll share it with you.
Thank you. Is the book.
Yeah, and she's also great. She's, culture is really important, obviously, to all of us. But that's one area where Lauren and I connected really well early on, is just, being intentional about setting the tone with the type of culture you want to have. And that just, again, leading by example, being open to getting feedback, empowering others, right? Coaching and developing. But it's also being open to getting feedback yourself, not one directional. And that's what I love about my relationship with her is, she'll give me really good feedback and make me stronger as a leader.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really important. Hey, Lauren, maybe before we shift here shortly to Demetri and the quick hits, who has been maybe, a few people that have been very influential on you as a leader, on your career thus far. Obviously you reach out, you network, you have a huge network, but anyone that maybe stands out, or if you just want to talk more about any big lessons you've learned as a leader from some of those that have mentored you.
Yeah, I would say, the people that gave me the chances are probably the ones that, I guess to some degree saw themselves in me a little bit. So Susan Mergen is the person that really gave me my first leadership role at Cardinal, is a lifelong mentor. I see her every day. I work in a co-working space that her and her husband founded. And so that's just a relationship that kind of goes on in perpetuity. And I always look to her for advice. And Bill, like you said, I mean, she'll tell me, she'll give me the business. She'll tell me what she truly thinks. She's not going to tell me what I want to hear. And we had a lot of interactions with each other where, I was like, hey, I really need your help. And she gave me feedback or redirection or her opinion, but for my own benefit. Like I knew she really cared about me. And so she's been a big one. Jamie has been a big one. Jamie Lewis, who we've talked about, you guys will meet. She's just one of those people that is so 3, 4, 5 steps ahead and so wise that, I can always go to her and say, hey, I need support. I need your opinion. I need your open feedback. And I feel like she's just that wise, person that comes into your life and just sprinkles like fairy dust on you and helps you see things differently.
She does.
Amazing.
So brilliant.
And even, I actually, I spent some time, even with some of my customers. There's a woman, Joyce Markowitz, who kind of has turned into a mentor, but she was a customer of mine. She's a CEO of a large health system up in New York now. But she's become a mentor. Mentorship takes effort, not just on the mentee, but also the mentor. And so we both kind of go back and forth and trying to stay connected. But, I think there's a number of people I could point to, that I've learned from, Bill, yourself included. But, I think that's one of the things that has definitely allowed me to be successful. You've got to be able to step out of your own head and get people's feedback and then reapproach whatever you're dealing with.
Awesome. That's great value on the mentorship piece. And then before we kick it over to D, the goat's gravy. We like to ask this question, Lauren. You've hit on probably a lot of them already.
Yep.
But is there one that you want to leave our audience with as it relates to sales, mentorship, one piece of goat's gravy that you want to deliver to our younger and career audience?
Yeah, I would say, you got to find something that you really believe in. And, if I had to say one tip or one advice is go where you have high belief. And then, that will, if you really believe in what you're selling or what you're doing, or, if you have the passion, that will drive a lot of the activities that will make you successful.
Love it. And then if you're not blessed with that luxury, which sounds like you were, and that's awesome, Lauren. Good for you. I know a lot of folks that aren't. you know? And I think another lesson learned that I heard from you today is just be persistent to go find that
Yeah.
and be inquisitive to go find it.
Yeah.
You know?
If you haven't found it, keep looking, but
Yeah.
don't stop until you find whatever, fills that bucket that you can believe in.
And if you can't find it, Billy, maybe you're just not cut for sales.
Maybe not. That could be it. But I just, the other thing too, I think it's just important to share with her is that, we talk about modeling the behavior you expect too, but I think when you find the right mentors, like for me, what's always been important to me, and it started with my dad. I was fortunate to grow up with someone that led by example in terms of how he treated people, always showing up with a positive mindset, believing that he can solve the problem or he's going to bring the positive energy to get things done, right? And so you try to emulate the different people that come in and out of your lives. But for me, I just know I'm very I like to study like different styles, different things that people do. And then you try to take a piece from each person. It's like she talks about Jamie. Jamie's been a mentor of mine too. And it's like Jamie and I are very different leaders, but we both have, unique strengths, and I can go to her. I know where I'm weak and I know where I need a lift. I can go to Jamie and she's going to be a straight shooter and give me really good feedback. There's other leaders like Christian Babini is another great mentor of mine who we'll have on, but I'll go to him and he may give me some very different feedback than what I get from Jamie, but then you got to triangulate it. But that's why it's so important, because I don't know if it's not, you shouldn't be in sales, but if you're not doing something you're super passionate about, are you working with people that you can grow with, you can learn from, and will ultimately help guide you to the right path to figure it out? Because Lauren, was trying to figure that early on with her story, and she coupled together a couple different experiences and ultimately figured that out. But she did that on her own just by being inquisitive. Yeah. So I just think it's really critical that you take the time and you're intentional about finding people to bring into your lives that are going to help you figure that out. Create your own little personal board. Reach out to your parents, friends, or people doing the careers you think you want to do. Or if you don't know, just go ask a bunch of questions and learn.
Right on.
So, all right, D.
Right on.
D money.
Well, it's time for the quick hits, Lauren.
Yep.
We'll just get some insight on your best approach towards some specific things that are really crucial to anybody that's trying to be awesome at sales. So the number one thing in sales is prospecting. If you don't have a pipeline, you can't close any deals. So specifically within the medical device industry and perhaps any industry, what has been the most effective strategy for identifying and actually getting in touch with potential clients?
I think on the prospecting side, I would say spend your time on the right targets. So know who you're trying to sell to, or, where you have a solution that fits a need. So understanding who you're selling to, and then kind of, I would say, putting a strategy around how you're going to approach them, right? So, go in prepared before you just show up, like know what you can bring to them to add value. The other thing with prospecting is we used to call it like milk runs, right? Like you're not going to show up to, let's say, a hospital in this case and land a deal that day. You may miss your call point. They may be in a meeting. So persistence is key. So milk run, meaning if you've got this prospect list, is just don't just call on them once and then strike out. Keep coming back. So stay persistent on your prospecting list. And then the pipeline, it's just, this is a way that we used to kind of qualify our deals is, think through like money, method, motivation, understand get to the know as fast as you can. And then that way you can solve for it. We used to say, don't fall in love with your deal, like call your baby ugly, and understand like where your gaps are or where your risks are. So you can try to solve for them earlier.
Right on.
Solid.
Awesome. That was great. Let's move on to networking. Can you share some tips?
She's an all-star.
You're going to crush this. So for the person that wants to be like Lauren that's listening to this and it's like, okay, this lady's legit.
Be like Lauren.
How do you build a strong professional network? Where do I start, and how do I get to the point of actually being able to leverage my network in a healthy way?
Yeah, I would say, Bill said it a couple times, but just be genuinely curious. So just ask good questions. Don't get on stage and talk about yourself. Make sure it's a conversation. Don't ask what do you.
He's pointing to me. I'm pointing to him. You just couldn't see my finger.
My guidance is I hate, I don't, and it may just be me. I hate when people say, "Hey, what do you do?" Like out of the,
I do too.
Like, that's their first question. Don't ask that. Like, find something in common with somebody.
What's an example for, like, if we're like trying to workshop this right now? Because I'm with you. I hate that question too. What's a question that would get somebody to like maybe stop what they're doing and be like, you know what? I'll push this meeting back 10 minutes. Like, what's a question that would get a leader interested?
Yeah, my favorite place to networks on planes. Like, so, I mean, this is how in everyday life you can just apply it. Somebody sitting next to you, it's just being intentional, being observant, finding something that you have in common. Maybe it's the book. Maybe it's, you're on the same flight. So where are you headed? Like, it's just making it genuine and conversational. And then you kind of find a path to something that you have in common with them one way or another. And then you can kind of work into the, professional question. But if you just say, "Hey, what do you do?" Like out of the gate, like that, I'm more interested in the person, not the job. So I would say,
right on.
Yeah.
Love it.
Someone not.
I think that's such a great point. And even when you go to dinners and things with customers, it's always fun. You do your research, your homework, you can very quickly figure out what they're into. And kind of to your point, and also hanging around you so much, like people love to talk about themselves, mostly Scott, but he's got a lot of great stories. But no, I really do. Like, you find a little thing, like someone's into triathlons and you can spend 30 minutes and they get, you see their energy change and they, you start talking and it kind of just breaks the ice. And, it doesn't always have to be zero right in on business. And I agree with everyone. Like, don't start with what do you do? And I get asked that and I meet this for the first time, like in the neighborhood.
That's funny. That's my favorite question.
That's the question that makes.
What do you do for a living? I don't know.
Yeah.
I like to ask, what's your last year? Like, be honest with me. What was your W-2? That's a great icebreaker. I love talking about money.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Okay.
Don't do that. All right. Sorry, Demetri.
That's great. Let's jump to interviewing. Interviewing is obviously make or break for teams. What are you looking for within the first 5 minutes of your interviews to know that a candidate's actually qualified?
Well, by the time that I've sit down with somebody, I know from an experience wise, they're capable, right? I would say in the first 5 minutes, it's preparedness, just how you show up, how you connect with the person across from you. Do you have good eye contact? Are you comfortable? Like, are you confident in yourself? I would say those are probably the first 5 minutes is just how you connect with me as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Not like, hey, for the role, but like, can we find common ground as people, before we jump in the career side?
Hey, will you just share you got to share your Detroit airport method too.
This is again, I can't claim this. This isn't mine, but this is one I stole from another great leader, Carol McIntyre. But it's hey, when it comes to how you're going to fit in, right? There is that amount, which is it's that fit in factor, right? I call it the Detroit airport test. And it's like, can I sit next to you in the Detroit airport for 4 hours when our planes are delayed? And can we have conversation? Are we comfortable around each other? Can we keep ourselves, entertained? Again,
it's be stuck in an elevator.
That's a good one.
It's a good one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Good connect.
Right on.
Yeah, and again, more questions. The more questions not about you, the intelligent questions are the better. I love Lauren. I don't think I'm that funny. But if you can create,
he thinks he's very funny.
No, I really don't. If you can create, humor about a topic, great icebreaker. When customers, like, I make fun of my son relentlessly. I mean, he is my target because he gives me so much material, and it's like that commonality. You know, a lot of our customers have kids, or they might have grandkids or friends that have kids. So it's a pretty common, you know, nieces, nephews, whatever it may be. Man, if you can get rolling on some humor around your kids, and then you start sharing that kind of those stories, man, that's gold. Yeah. You know, I found that to be really.
For the audience, you know, not so much the kids. Maybe making fun of ourselves. Yeah, people we're working with like you, but
right. All right, sorry.
But he is actually really, really funny to the point where.
No, it's just good icebreakers. That's all.
Yeah.
Prepping for sales calls. What are you coaching your team to do so that they have a higher success rate on the actual call? Like, what are you telling them to do in their prep?
Yeah, I love this one. I think obviously prep is important, right? Having all your content together that you're going to walk through, making sure that that's all tight. But I would say that what I found is most beneficial with sales call prep is kind of thinking through all the different avenues that it could go down, like from best to worst. So kind of scenario prep, like, you know, X, Y, Z. What if they say this, or this is their objection or their concern? How am I going to overcome it? Right. So just kind of thinking, like going through the motions on what you may run into beyond just like having the material, and not maybe what you're going to say, but how are they going to respond? And then if they respond that way, what are you going to, like, which direction are you going to go?
Yeah. And just being committed to the process of doing it. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're very consistent, but basic fundamentals.
Yeah, and just for our audience out there, Billy. Oftentimes we set a meeting with a customer, and the next time we meet with that customer is our actual meeting, and that's the last communication we have with them. So, you know, even think of yourself as a customer, you're buying whatever. I love constant interactions until the actual meeting, right? To keep it top of mind, because I can't tell you how many meetings, and I'm sure our audience could understand this, is you show up to the meeting, they're not ready, they're not focused, and sometimes they don't even show up. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's just the prep is actually constant communication to that client or prospect, so they're actually ready for you when it actually happens.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that goes with interviewing too, by the way. Because we, you know, just skip over that, but Lauren and I both had a candidate recently, but sent a pre-meeting email with some goals and objectives and excitement to connect with me, and then had the meeting and like immediate follow-up, like your guy did today. Yeah. So that's really good. And by the way, do you want to touch on your new Saturday interviewing? We'll save that for another day.
Yeah, we'll save it for another day.
Someone today on a Saturday and you loved it.
Saturday interviews where you're focused. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Dean.
Let's jump to follow-up, right? You got a good sales call. They're interested, potentially opportunity. How do you balance persistence with respect and follow-up communications?
Oh, that's a good one. You know, I think you just have to be mindful of it, and again, be authentic in your follow-up. You know, you don't need to email them every Friday at 3:00 if you haven't heard anything. I mean, make it intentional. And then, you know, the other thing is it's a good old, like, belly to belly sales always works. Like, find a way to get in front of the person, or to catch them, you know, over the phone, you know, just to catch them live. But don't be afraid to, again, put yourself, you know, take a chance and call somebody or try to show up. You know, you were in the neighborhood, whatever, you're right down the street at another client. You know, find a way to get in front of somebody beyond just email warrior.
Yeah.
The other thing with follow-up, I just want to hit this on interviewing, because this is probably my second pet peeve, is in follow-up emails, like, make it intentional, pull through something from the conversation. Like, you know, don't make it so general that it looks like you had, you know, AI or whatever write it for you. Like, take something from the conversation that you had with whoever you're interviewing to make it really genuine. I think that'll go along.
Love that.
And so personal. Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Personal.
Negotiating. So we've gone through prepping for the sales call. We follow up well. Now we're actually at the point where they might actually sign the contract. How do you handle those? Go for it, Bill.
Sorry, I just want to say one thing because we talk about negotiating a lot too, and everyone's in different types of sales. Sometimes it could just be negotiating kind of a next step. Sometimes it could be negotiating, if someone's going to get trained on a certain product, sometimes it's negotiating a deal, a contract, whether it's tech deal or whatever it is. So I just think we got to clarify that too, because there's a lot of different industries out there. But Lauren, in your experience, you've negotiated capital deals in the selling arena, and you negotiate, clinical onboarding plans. But just your thoughts around negotiating.
Yeah. I'll probably lean more on the capital experience side here, but I would say understand what the customer's end goal is. So what are they asking for? And making sure you have very clear, you understand that so clearly, that you understand what their end goal is, whether it's pricing, whether it's terms or conditions, whatever. And then understand what matters most to them, because they're going to ask you for multiple things. So try to clarify what matters most to them and why. And so once you have that information, then you can kind of take it back, work through, a give and take, and then, go back to them. But if you don't understand what they're asking for and why, it's really hard to negotiate and to walk away with a win on your side too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. We touched on this pre-show, but social selling is obviously a new thing. How do you effectively use social media for selling, and how has that played a role in opportunities?
I mean, LinkedIn's a pretty, a big platform. You can reach a lot of people on there. I would say in my most recent role, I get a lot of touches on LinkedIn from people that are either interested in working with us, Extronics, or want to connect with me. I like it because you can get in touch with your customers. You can learn a lot more about your industry, the key players in your industry. Again, you can learn about what they're doing, what they're interested on, in what they're focused on, and kind of staying, relevant, so to speak. But so I use it a lot that way. And then, over time, they start to take notice that you're engaged with them. And it may be just a comment here or a comment there. And so you can kind of make deposits on your customers socially that then, we were at a BioSkills a couple weeks ago, and, one of the doctors has a YouTube channel, and, I tune in and listen to it here and there, but I'm very intentional to just put a quick comment like, oh my gosh, this is great. And so when we saw each other a couple of weeks ago, I was like, hey, I've been, keeping an eye on your social channel. And it's just like a way to connect again. So I like it. I'm definitely engaged on that platform quite a bit.
One more thing too, I think, because you're really good at it, by the way. You connect with all kinds of people. You can use it even for your pre-call planning, right? You go onto their LinkedIn or any social media, and you'll see what they care about, what they're posting, what they're sharing, and that type of information. So social selling isn't just about selling to someone through a social platform, but also what you can kind of learn about someone, how you can go engage with those people, right? So there's a lot of different ways you can leverage it. I don't do it well enough on LinkedIn personally. I know I can raise the bar for myself, but you're someone I notice you are very active, and you do a really good job with it.
I think you can also see mutual connections, and we all have different levels of mutual connections. But if you see, a call point that you're trying to get to, and you pull up mutual connections and you see one that you're really close to, that's a good way to, for that person to make an intro for you or to name drop, hey, I know so-and-so. And, so I use that quite a bit too.
Yeah. And be consistent. If we've got younger and career folks listening, they've had jobs before. It could be a small job, but ask people that you've worked with to chime in. And there's a little reference section on the bottom of LinkedIn that I personally don't do a great job of it. I wish I'd do a better job of it. But when I was interviewing someone today, I certainly looked into that, and no one's going to give a bad reference. on their own LinkedIn page, but it's interesting on what they say. What about them and about their leadership qualities. I just tune into that. That helps me prepare. Is this a match? Is it not? But that might be something worthwhile for our younger listeners to take advantage of.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yep.
And lastly, selling to power. Obviously, you are in leadership, so you're astronomically more effective at, I'm assuming, than a beginner, right? An SDR or account manager. How do you approach and communicate value to executive level decision makers in your role today? And how would you share somebody that's in a younger role to do that too?
Yeah, I would say when I was calling on executive call points, brevity is really important. You need to know exactly what you want them to hear. And so practice that. We would typically cold call on the executive level, and you would get maybe 2 minutes. And it's because you're asking them for 2 minutes and they're good people and they're going to give you 2 minutes because you're standing in front of them if they can. Right. And so just being super brief, like not brief to the point of where it's uncomfortable, but your message is so clear and it's going to hit on their quadruple aim on what matters most to them on, economics, operational effectiveness, whatever they care about. But you want them to like say, here, your mantra, right? Like, this is what I can save you. This is why it's really important. And this is how it's going to, let's say, improve your clinical experience or whatever it might be, your value prop. So just being super crisp because they have so many things going on and you just want to set the hook to then get a meeting.
Right on.
Love it. The only thing I'd just add to that too, that is, you've done this, but just getting a leader to connect, if you're calling on someone, a very important customer, we have people in the field that I'll get a message, I'll get a text. Will you just send a message to this doctor that just did X, and congratulate them or this or that. I think getting your own leadership team, I know you do that with your CEO, right? To get involved with big customer meetings, get good meetings, even just sending a brief email or something, excited that you're a customer of ours. Thank you. Those things really matter too. Yeah. So I think if you can leverage your own leaders to connect with the leaders that you're calling on, it's another great little connection point.
Yeah. And Lauren hit the nail on the head with the brevity piece.
Yes.
Execs don't read anything. I got news for everyone listening. It's like, hey, Scott, reach out to this executive. And I'm like, hey, great. Can you consolidate the message for me? And I'll put my own twist on it. And I get 3 paragraphs all the time. I said, this person has about 3 bullet points of capacity to potentially handle this question. Yep. So that's, I love Lauren's point on
single thumb scroll.
Brevity. Yeah.
My other one is I when I was calling on executives, I would typically hit them on email or LinkedIn on like Sunday night, because that's when they're sitting on their couch or whatever, or just like trying to get ready for the week.
That's a good point.
I got
fun this time.
It's that way.
Well, listen, Lauren, thank you so much. Great information, great practical lessons that you share. I think a lot of people are going to benefit from this conversation. I know I have. I know Scott definitely needed.
Great work, Lauren. Great to meet you as well.
You're outstanding. We love working with you and knowing you, and just really proud of you and the career journey that you're on. And I'll end it with this. You look at leaders, like, is this a leader I would work for if they're reporting to you or in your organization? And this is someone there's no question I would work for someday. She's outstanding. So Lauren, thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining us, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks, Lauren.
Hey, thanks everybody. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Have a good one.
All right, we'll see you.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of The Goat's Gravy. We've shared some awesome insights and strategies aimed at enhancing your journey in sales. And the conversation does not have to stop here. So be sure to follow us on social media at The Goat's Gravy and explore more at thegoatsgravy.com. Your journey towards sales mastery is ongoing, and we're here to support you at every step. So thank you for tuning in today. Stay curious, stay driven, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.